We're now going to go through the cut chart together. And the cut chart starts off with the binding requirements. Now, if you are following the suggestion of cutting the gusset on the bias and using it for the front binding, then you will only need binding for a separate strip of binding for the back. Ideally cut on the bias, though it does work if it's on the grain too, like I did here. It's just not gonna sit as nicely and it might be more wrinkly, and the purse is probably going to flop out a little bit instead of laying flatter. And for this one, because my gusset is cut on the grain and not the bias, I need a strip of binding for the front as well. So in the pattern, this is written as the front binding and the back binding. All sizes need back binding. Only if you are doing the alternate gusset construction do you need the front binding. So for my size that we're cutting out here, I've got my back binding. It's cut on the bias. It's got a little bit of stretch. Now for our piece A, this looks a little complicated when you see everything written out, but it is not that complicated once you start sewing it. Your piece A has a front and a back. So you're going to be using this piece both for this front and for this back piece. You can see there's a seam here. So front and back are both cut out with this pattern piece. For the front, you cut out your exterior and your lining up here at the top. And then you cut out your back piece on this, this dotted line. Now you're also going to be cutting out your interfacing, your stiff piece of interfacing on this dotted line, and it'll be fused right in the very first step. We fuse it to this piece, so I went ahead and did that. And it does not go all the way to the top, but it goes flush with the rounded edges. And I say interface with woven fusible interfacing if your fabric is lightweight, and that's for the exterior pieces. Now this fabric is cotton canvas. It probably could have been okay, but I decided I liked it a little bit better interfaced, so these were interfaced. So that's piece A. Piece B, exterior flat, so this piece right here, and that is also interfaced only if it's lightweight. And one thing, all of these pattern pieces have the center marked. So I've gone through and I've marked the center on the front or back of all these pieces. Oh, I also forgot, back at piece A, I was trying to use up some scraps of interfacing, so that's why it looks like this. But I kept my interfacing out of the edges here because I'm concerned with my machine. I'm always concerned about thickness because I have a domestic machine. So if you have an industrial, you might not even be worried about this. But if you have a domestic, I would keep your interfacing out of the seams. Okay, and your piece C, which is the flap lining, which means it's this big piece on the inside, that is cut out of lining with no interfacing, or no woven interfacing. But then your stiff interfacing, your Decoville or your Peltex, will be fused or basted to this piece. Piece D is the lining slip pockets. So these pieces in here, and they are interfaced, but the interfacing is kept out of the seam allowances. Piece E is for your zipper pockets. Now you have the option of doing a pocket on the inside and on the back, though with the mini I don't recommend it on the inside just because it would be such a little pocket, and so it'd be really hard to use. Though if this is for a kid, they can probably use it easier than an adult. But for the pattern, I recommended only doing it on the back for the mini. So you either cut out one or two of these depending on how many pockets you are making for your purse, and I interface them. Piece F is the gusset piece. Now both if if you're doing this on the bias, both your exterior and your lining need to be cut on the bias. So they both have just a little bit of stretch. Now, I didn't call for these pieces to be interfaced. However, I am using just a plain quilting cotton for the exterior, and I felt like on my gusset I needed that to be a little thicker than the standard quilting cotton. So I did interface this, but as you can see, I cut my woven interfacing on the bias as well. So I have the stretch I need to use this gusset as the binding. Now, if I were going to cut it like this one on the grain without any stretch, I will cut it on this dotted line, and so it'll be narrower. And the dimensions for these are included in the cut chart if you don't want to use the pieces. So that is piece F. Piece G is the D-ring attachment. It's the same piece for all of the sizes, and for the large and the small, it'll end up being 1 inch wide. For the mini, you're going to fold it one more time, so it's 1/2 inch wide. So whether you interface this or not, it kind of depends on what fabric you're using. For this vinyl, I did not interface it, but I put ribbon on the inside. Ribbon is one of my favorite ways to stabilize these attachers, because over time this is going to have stress, and the ribbon just helps with that. These I will be folding into 4ths for the mini, and I didn't want it to have no interfacing at all, but I didn't want to interface the whole thing because I felt like that would be thick. So I actually just interfaced a little strip in the middle. Piece H is the slip pocket binding. So, apparently this was in my purse and I forgot to take it out. I've been using this purse for the past couple of weeks to test the pattern out. So this is the H slip pocket binding piece. It does not need to be cut on the bias. It's just straight, so you can cut it from this piece. I did end up cutting off the raw edge on this back part, and so I cut off the excess, but you'll follow the instructions in the pattern for how to bind that pocket. Oops. And your piece I strap. So this is thin fabric, so I did interface it. For my other sizes, I'm not interfacing it because I'm using thicker fabric. But I never go all the way to the end on my straps, because they are going to be quite a bit of thickness once they're folded at the end. So I usually just leave an inch or two at the end uninterfaced if I'm going to do that. All right, so you are now ready, once you have everything cut out and interfaced, to sew the pattern.